showing sympathy for them and meeting their needs, winning their confidence as only a Savior could. And as Jesus taught, we may bid them follow me. Lord, help me
on. Good afternoon, everyone. We're about to start our program this evening or this afternoon. We'd like to invite those of you who are sitting back there, since we have so much space up front, to come join us up here so that we can be closer to one another. And it'll be a lot more fun when we don't feel like we're all spaced out. That's right. Well, we got a few more people. They're coming in, so let's just get started, and those people who come in can just join us when they arrive.
We are glad you are here. Happy Sabbath to each of you. I think it'll be a very fruitful and productive afternoon. And I think Brother Yves will have a lot to share from his experience with all the different meetings. And he is with It Is Written. And I don't know if you've had a chance to meet him yet, but he's a very kind and very spiritual man. And I know that he will challenge us to think about evangelism and outreach and ministry, how to reach our community and how to generate Bible studies and how to work with interest. And I think everybody has gotten a handout now. Does everybody have this? So if those who are watching by live streaming, if you do not have this, please text myself or Kathy Griffin, and we'll see if we can get this to you so that you can follow along. But we welcome you, those who are watching at this sites through live streaming. Anyone here? Yes. Okay, so we'll get some more. Let's see. You can get some, Georgiana. I think there's some out there. So. We will, just so you know, the schedule for today, we'll be taking breaks, I believe, on the hour. Is that right, Yves? So we'll be taking breaks on the hour. And so you won't be sitting all afternoon. There will be an opportunity to get up and stretch and talk together. And then at the end, at 6 o'clock, we will have a meal, a light meal served downstairs, I believe. Pastor Ramon, is it downstairs? Okay, so we hope that you'll stay around for that and enjoy the fellowship together. I think we're at different churches, so I'm looking around. I see different churches represented, so it's good to have each of you here. We're going to begin with prayer. Then I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Ramon and their singing, their song service, and then we'll proceed with the afternoon. So let's bow our heads together. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can come together this afternoon for training of how to reach our communities and how to really see your fruit realized in our churches, our communities. Lord, we really have a burden, a desire to see your work grow, and we want to make an impact for you, but we need training. We need to know how to do that. And so bless us and encourage us. And I know it's going to be a long afternoon, but it'll go very fast. And so we look forward to what's going to be presented. So bless us with your spirit now. In Jesus' name, amen.
I figured I'd come closer to you guys this way. So, hi everybody. There's not a whole lot of us, so we're going to need to sing really loud, right? So, if you guys were at the rally, you're familiar with the songs that we're going to sing because we're using the same set. So, let's sing to our best of our heart's content. Story to tell to the nations that shall turn their hearts to the right. A story of truth and mercy, a story of peace and light, a story of peace and light. For the darkness shall turn to dawning, and the dawning to new opening song, we're going to sing a servant's prayer. If you're at the rally, you know it. If not, you've probably never heard it before. But it's a really easy song. It's really catchy. It's great. Let's stand. Always makes it easier to sing when you're standing. He's going to play through it once, and then we'll sing it. Lord, help me mingle with people as one who desired their good, showing sympathy for them and meeting their need, winning their confidence as only our Savior could. Lord, help me mingle with people as one who desired their good, showing sympathy for them and meeting their need, winning their confidence as only our Savior could. Thank you, everybody. You may be seated.
All right, good. Good afternoon, everyone. Really? Not me this time. Hello? This one?
We can get it working. I'll bring it back. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, everyone. That sounds far better. Nice to see you on this beautiful Sabbath afternoon. Temptation is to do other things on Sabbath afternoon, lay activity or walk, but here you are, and I'm glad you're here. Let me open my laptop here. I jotted some notes here. For those of you who are not here this morning, and I notice some faces that I don't recognize from this morning, so let me introduce myself again. My name is Yves Monnier, and that is a good, solid French name, and that's because my country of origin is Switzerland. I'm from the French-speaking corner of Switzerland, and so it's been a challenge in the United States for people to pronounce my name. Really a big challenge because, first of all, Yves doesn't sound like Bob or Vic or those good solid male names. But in France and Switzerland, Yves is a very common name, and like I said to the folks this morning, if my parents had known we'd moved to the United States, I'm sure they would have come up with something different. The funny part about my name, I remember just in Chattanooga, my wife and I were at the store. And here's the challenge with my name. So the lady was convincing us to buy what she was selling. And then she turned to me and said, "Mr. Monnier." We still bought from her. We understood, but so name is Monnier, Yves Monnier, and I am excited to be here. I'm the evangelism director for It Is Written, and if you recall, 3 weeks ago, John Bradshaw was here. I'm here this time. In 3 weeks, there'll be someone else from It Is Written, and well, probably not. But It Is Written is going to be very involved in Indiana. Maybe not as often as you've had it recently, but It Is Written has partnered with the Indiana Conference in this journey called, let me see if you know what this journey is called. You better know it. And if you don't know it by the end of the afternoon, you have slept through the afternoon. And it's going to be repeated and repeated and repeated again. Ignite Indiana. It's a wonderful journey that It Is Written is excited to be part of. Let me give you a little background about this, because I think it's good for you to understand how we got to where we are. And it will give me the opportunity to tell you where we're headed for the next 2 years, because this here is a journey. Sometimes you look at evangelism as an event, but this here is not an event. It's a journey with climatic things happening along the way. And one of those climatic things, of course, will be our big meetings that will take place in the spring of 2020. The way I look at it, it's like, I'll never forget when my wife and I found out that we were going to have a baby. The we is kind of royal because she had the baby, but I was kind of part of it. But she reminds me, I'm the one who had the baby. But I'll never forget when we found out that she was going to have the baby, and it was a joyful experience. The first thing we did was to cry and to shout with joy and to call our parents and do all the things that you do when you find out that you're going to have a baby. Now, for the next 9 months, you know what happened. Next 9 months, well, not 9 months, next 8 months, 7.5 months, we're getting ready for the birth of the baby. So you read everything there's to read about the different stages before the birth and what happens afterward, and you decorate the room, you buy the furniture, all these wonderful things. Did you do the same thing, those of you who have children? And then the second one, what book? Yeah, what book? Our daughter we were experts by the time she came along. We don't need a book to tell us what's going to happen when and where. We know it all. Anyway, but that was the journey. It was an exciting journey. And then when it was time for Daniel to be born, it was, awesome. Well, it's the same thing here. This is more than 9 months, but it's going to be a journey where we look forward to the climatic moment. And you know very well, when the baby's born, is that the end? Have mercy. Daniel's now 27, and he still needs mom and dad. It's never over. Never over. And so when the climatic moment happens, and that is in the spring of 2020, we're going to rejoice. We're going to have a wonderful time. But then it's far from being over. We continue. And we'll continue until Jesus comes. So I just wanted to tell you how this is going to go a little bit, and I'll give you more details. But over a year and a half ago, the conference leadership and It Is Written, we began to collaborate and discuss and imagine and plan and say, what if? And the what if became no longer just a what if, it became a reality. We decided that we would partner together and go forward. And so for the last year and a half, it's been a little bit more behind the scenes, talking with the conference president, Steve Penitz, talking with Vic, talking with Harvey Cornegay, talking to other pastors, planning. And so 3 weeks ago was kind of the kickoff to Ignite Indiana. That was when it's now official. We're going forward. And for the next 2 years, we're going to do a lot of things together. And we're going to look forward to the arrival of the baby. Well, kind of, sort of. You know what I mean. So let me tell you what's going to happen for the next several weeks. Now it's all hands on deck. Last weekend, let me backtrack a little bit here, we had the Pastor Dante Godot, who came from the New York conference. He came here to do training for the Spanish-speaking churches. How did that go? He didn't come? Oh. He was supposed to be here. No one ever told me. He didn't tell me even. He was too scared to tell me. April 14, he's coming? All right. I'm sure he'll contact me about the ticket. He'll need my credit card for that. Anyway, in the future, Pastor Dante Godot will be doing a training for the Spanish-speaking churches. I'm doing training today. And by the way, Vic, you have such great expectations. By tonight, when we're done, you'll know everything about personal evangelism. A to Z, you'll be experts, and you'll be ready to go. I wish it were that simple. We're going to just scratch the surface here. And the reason I can just scratch the surface here is because It Is Written is bringing into the Indiana Conference full-time for the next 2 years, boots on the ground, our very own Bible work coordinator. And his name is Jack Phillips. If you were here 3 weeks ago, he was here at the rally. And Jack is actually here this weekend in Indiana. He's at the Muncie Church doing the same thing I'm doing here. And he's also looking around for housing. So he's serious. He's moving here. And what he's going to be doing is providing support and training and encouragement, all the things that you'd want. So you're going to see Jack over and over and over again. And he is going to be the one that will help in this journey together as we look forward to spring of 2020. Then this summer, camp meeting. We're going to have Eric Flickinger, who's going to be here. He's the associate speaker of It Is Written. He's going to be doing some training at camp meeting. And Pastor John Bradshaw will be here at camp meeting. So we're serious about this. We're very serious. It Is Written is fully committed to the Indiana Conference and to this project. And we can't wait to see what God is going to be doing in this field. By the way, I do want to acknowledge, I don't know which camera to look at. Which camera do I look at? The one in the back? I do want to acknowledge those of you who are joining us by stream. We're glad that you're with us. And I want to give you my phone number because along the way you may have some observations and some questions, and I don't want to just ignore you. Just because you're not here doesn't mean you're less important. So here's my phone number. Are you ready? No, not you guys. You don't need to text me. You just raise your hand. But if you want my phone number to call me later to say hello, 661-319-9529. So for those of you who are watching from other locations, other churches, you're important. I'm glad you're part of this. And if you have any observations, questions, or clarification that you need, please text me, and I will definitely have my phone here and be able to do my best to answer. Number is, again, 661-319-9529. It's going to be a great journey, and I want you to know that God is in charge of this journey. I'm going to tell you 2 stories, and then we're going to really delve into this. But before I tell you the stories, let's pray first. Father God, thank you for this beautiful day, beautiful afternoon, and for everyone who's here. We invite you, Lord, to bless our time together, our training. I hope that some of the things we'll talk about will inspire, will help, will motivate, will provide some skill and know-how on how to reach our community better. So Lord, take over, I pray. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. A few years ago, I guess I'll do this chronologically. Quite a few years ago, it is written, did meetings in the city of Rome. Maybe some of you may remember that we were in Rome, and that was quite an adventure, to say the least. And our meetings were scheduled to be held in a beautiful venue. I visited the venue, just large venue, probably about the size of the church here, maybe a little bigger, just beautiful, on a main boulevard in the city of Rome. I'm talking, by the way, about Rome, Italy, not Rome, Georgia, or something like that. Okay? So, contract has been signed many, many months prior. The church members, because the postal service there is inferior, decided that we're going to just hand deliver them to the whole city. We're going to go building after building after building, and we're going to just stuff the mailboxes with our handbill. And they did this 1 week, and then again the second week. So to be sure that everyone got them, they went twice to the same address. That's dedication. And this was, they hand-delivered, let me give you the numbers, 800,000 handbills. 800,000 handbills. Have mercy. I'll never forget our church members coming together in our staging place. They had their carts. They would load up the handbills. They would then go to their bus station and take the bus to their assigned territory. It was a sight to watch. I just loved it. Well, they were so good, so efficient. See, there's danger of being too good. Maybe we shouldn't be that efficient and that committed and that passionate. Well, here's what happened. I guess some handbills ended up in the wrong hands, or maybe the right hands. Depends on how you look at it. And so someone saw it, passed it on to someone else, who passed it on to someone else, and then it just kept going up the ladder. I'll let you fill in the blanks here. And finally, what essentially happened is someone very powerful in Rome contacted the director of the venue that we had rented. Remember, God is in charge, okay? Don't forget this. So he contacted the director of the venue. The director of the venue said, but they have a contract. And this person said, we don't care. Let them sue us. And, the legal system can take forever and ever and ever and never end up. So the doctor said, okay, I'll call them. So they called the union director of our church, and he's like arguing with them. He says, there's nothing to argue. It's final. This is it. You don't have the venue. And this was 5 days before we opened our meetings. God's in charge. So next person, the president of the union calls is me, because I'm the local coordinator for this project. He calls me up and he says, Yves, are you sitting down? I said, well, I'm in the bus. I guess I can find a seat on the bus. I'll never forget. There's certain phone calls you never forget. There's things that happen in your life that you know exactly where you were when it happened. This is one of those. I was on bus number 60 going downtown Rome. And so he says, Yves, we just received word. I just had a phone call from the director of the venue telling us that the venue where we were planning to open our meetings, the venue that we've advertised all around the city of Rome, 800,000 handbills, well, that venue is no longer available to us. 5 days before the meetings open up. Well, God's very powerful, and God's in charge, and He's in charge of our project here as well. That's the point that I'm making here. And what happened with this is that the media in Rome heard about what had happened to the poor Seventh-day Adventist church. And so they said, hey, we feel bad for you. Why don't you come and tell us what they did to you? So, You know, It Is Written went on the news, on the radio. And, we were very kind. We just said we're very disappointed. We had a signed contract. It didn't happen. But we have shifted our meetings because we quickly shifted our meetings to the largest Adventist church. A lot smaller, not as well located. But, we have to do what we have to do. And we had the opportunity to invite people in a much broader way than if we had not had that happen to us. And opening night, we had a full packed house, full house in the church, and then we had another hall that we had closed circuit TV. Just amazing. Now, another thing that happened in those meetings, remember, God's in charge, and the reason I bring it up is because of this here. The speaker director we did orientation on Thursday night. We opened our meetings on Saturday night. The orientation is on Thursday night. This is just like here, telling members what to expect, how to dress, how to prepare themselves, how to greet, all the stuff that you want to do before you have a major campaign. Well, he had his laptop pretty much on a stand like this, on a music stand. And I always say to myself, Yves, never put your laptop on a music stand with only 3 legs, because that's not very steady. Marble floor, beautiful marble floor where we were doing this. So I'm not as afraid here because we have a carpeted floor. Maybe I should still be afraid. Someone bumped the stand. And I remember watching it, and it just, in slow motion, the laptop fell to the ground. This was his laptop with all his notes, with all the PowerPoint, with everything there was to have. Well, the laptop fell, and it survived for just a few minutes. They did some CPR, but an hour later, it was declared dead. And everything on it gone. This is Thursday night. We open our meetings on Saturday night. Let me tell you, the next 2 days, I've never seen anyone so busy in trying to recreate the notes. But you know what? I think God gave him better notes, better sermons, better messages than before. So the bottom line here is God's in charge. It's a journey. We're going to have some challenges, but God is going to take care of things. Which leads me to the second story. This was in 2012. We accepted an invitation, just like we are doing here, to go to Charlotte, North Carolina. And we were working with 2 conferences, South Atlantic Conference and the Carolina Conference. Beautiful church members just like here. Wonderful pastors to work with. A great journey. And our meetings were scheduled for October of 2013. Everything in place, everything lined up, all going well, everybody thumbs up, praise the Lord. Except in August of 2013, I received another phone call. I'm not going to answer my phone anymore. It's just, I'm done. If I see Vic calling me before we have our meetings, I'm not going to answer. I do not want to know. It was John calling me. He's the boss. I'm going to have to answer his phone call. And he says, Yves, I've got some news. And again, it's one of those phone calls. I remember exactly where I took the phone call. I was standing in my balcony at my house. And I said, John, what? He says, well, I've visited the doctor and I've been informed that I have a tumor in my tongue. Some of you may remember John's challenge a few years ago. And he said, I'm going to have to go through radiation. And it's going to be during that time when the meetings take place in Charlotte, I will not be able to do the meetings. We have to find someone else to do the meetings. By the way, John is an amazing speaker, powerful. Is it coincidental that the devil attacks his tongue of all places? And so we're like, oh, have mercy. Now we have to find someone else to do the meetings. I mean, everything is set up for John. And so we said, Lord, just show us who. Show us who should do this. These are your meetings. This is your project. This is your journey. You help us through this. And if anyone has been following It Is Written over the years, we turned to a veteran evangelist, one of the best evangelists, and his name was Ron Halverson, Brother Ron Halverson. Ron, I called him up. I'll never forget the phone call. I said, Ron, we've got a problem here, and we're wondering if you'd be willing to step in and do these meetings. And he said, where are they? I said, in just a couple months. And he said, Yves, by the power and grace of God, I will do my very best. And if you've ever seen those meetings, you can go to itiswritten.com, and I think you can find those meetings on our website. Those are some of the very best meetings I have ever heard. Some of the very best meetings I've ever been part of. It was God just put Ron in the right place at the right time to preach a message like he did. And probably about a year later, our dear brother Ron fell asleep in Jesus. So this was one of his last series, and we're thankful that we have them forever on video, and it was just a very good thing. So Vic, message here is God's in charge. He will see us through this journey. We're going to have some highs, and we're going to have some lows, and we're going to have a lot of things in between, but God will see us through this journey. By the way, folks, if you're watching us by stream, my phone number, I'll keep reminding just in case someone tunes in late, 661-319-9529. So if you have any questions, observations as we go forward. Let me clarify 3 big misunderstandings about evangelism. And there are some misunderstandings that people have. Let me point something out here. Vic, I may go a little longer than 4 o'clock. And we may end a little bit before 6 o'clock. Is that a big problem? All right. I've never heard anyone complain about finishing early. Misunderstanding number 1. Misunderstanding number 1. There's no one to evangelize. No one left to evangelize. People have made up their minds. You know, people have settled where they're going to be for the rest of their lives. I've heard this. There's just no one to evangelize. It doesn't work anymore. We can't do it. Matthew chapter 9. It's just such a cool chapter. I read here how Jesus was traveling through the cities and villages, place to place. And here's what it says in verse 36. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them because they were weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. Let me tell you, if Jesus were to walk around here, he would see the exact same thing. People weary and scattered and confused and lost, and he would have compassion for them. And here's what he told the disciples as he's looking around. He says, the harvest truly is what? Plentiful, great, but the laborers are few. So let me be clear about this. The problem we have is not a lack of people interested in spiritual things, interested in something better. What is lacking are laborers. That's our greatest issue. It is written, keeps hearing the same thing over and over wherever we go. Evangelism doesn't work. It's just not going to work. We went to Moldova, and your pastor, former pastor here, Daniel Ortega, I know he must have shared with you a little bit about his experience in Moldova, right? And, we did training there, and people said, you have to understand, Moldova is like no other place. It doesn't work here. But someone said, just for the fun of it, we're going to prove him wrong. We're going to go to a building. They selected 2 apartment buildings. This is in the city of Chisinau in Moldova. That's the capital of Moldova. So they decided to follow what they've been trained to do. But we're going to prove them it doesn't work. So they went door to door, and they did a survey, just a simple survey, introduced themselves, asked a few questions, and said, hey, by the way, would you be interested in Bible studies? Home after home said, yeah, that might be interesting. Absolutely. when they were done with the 2 buildings, they had probably well over 20 people, 20 homes who said, yes, come back. We'd be interested in lesson number 2. We'd be interested in something more. Moldova, it works there. We just were in Australia 2 weeks ago. I was doing some training there in Australia. And guess what? Well, you have to understand, Australians are different than Americans. People always say, well, you think that what you do in America works in other places, but in our place, it's different than America. Ladies and gentlemen, what I have discovered is that no matter where you are in the world, people are essentially the same. No, sure, we have different cultural customs, and sure, we have different languages, and some of us have interesting names. But deep inside, we're all the same. We have the same basic needs. We have a need to eat, and we have a need to rest, and we have a need to feel safe, and we have the same basic needs. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. It doesn't change. Whether you're in Australia, Moldova, Philippines, Zimbabwe, Mongolia, all these places, Lebanon, it's the same. We have to approach a little differently in some cases, but at the end of the day, we all have the same needs. So in Australia, we said, hey, let's do some surveys. We'll go out into the community. We'll just introduce ourselves, build a relationship, just connect with people and ask them if they'd be interested in Bible studies. It doesn't work in Australia, Yves. It doesn't work in Australia. Let's just do it. So we had several teams of people who went out, knocked on doors. We had a survey. Hello, my name is Yves Monnier. This here is my friend Beck. And we are here representing It Is Written. We're just doing a quick survey. Do you have a couple minutes? All right, mate. So we did the survey and answered the question. We had a lot of people who said no, not interested. Hey, that's fine. And we're no worse than before. If we had not gone there, it would have been the same as, no difference. But along the way, I had my partner. Her name was Beck, full name Rebecca. And Rebecca and I, in 2 hours, and by the time we got halfway through the first hour, she says, Yves, I'm taking over now. Because I was taking the lead to show her how to do it, and she says, Yves, let me show you how to do it. And she really did phenomenal. I'm just sitting back and I'm saying, go girl, just go get him. At the end of 2 hours, so it's one afternoon and then another afternoon, she had 9 homes where she could go back and deliver lesson number 2. 9 homes in a radius of 500 yards. So she could go one afternoon and just deliver all the lessons just like this without any problems. Do you know what the greatest challenge to going door to door, the biggest challenge by far? Nobody home. That's the biggest challenge. People say, I've had people, we were doing meetings in Las Vegas. We did training there as well. And so we had a couple ladies who were following up a Bible study request card. We'll talk about this a little later. So they were following that up, and they were absolutely scared, stiff. It's like, we know we should do this, but we're so scared. And so I'll never forget, they went to the first door, knocked at the door, but in their heart they're saying, oh, we hope no one's home. Just no one's home. Just we pray for no one home. And but no, we do want to. You know how it is. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And no one answered the door. And so they're going back to their car, because you always want to go 2 by 2, by the way. It's always the best way to do it. No less than 2. If you go by 3, that's fine. Probably not 4. That's a crowd. 3 is still fine. One person, I think it's always wisest, bestest. Well, I know that's not a word, but best to go with another person for a multitude of reasons. Safety, you have companionship, you have someone who prays while you're doing the talking. It really is the best. Plus, isn't that the way Jesus said? And that should settle it all. So they go back to their car. It's like, it's like, relief. We don't have to say anything. But at the same time, it's like, I wish there had been someone home. So they get back in their car, and just as they're opening the door to their car, the door opens. Were you looking for me? And they're like, yes, as a matter of fact, we were. So they walked back, and we said, we're here to bring lesson number 1. You sent this Bible study request card, and the lady's like, I am so glad you're here. I was in the back room. That's why it took so much time to answer the door. I was in the back room, and I actually was praying and saying, God, send me someone, because I'm searching, I'm needing, my life is a mess, and here you are. I know, these stories, you hear them about in other places in the world. This happened in Las Vegas. Well, some of you may say that's in another part of the world. So, God has people all around the world, has people all around here that indeed are seeking. The problem is not the lack of people. The problem is the lack of laborers. I'll tell you a sad story. This is in a different country than here. Many, many years ago, we go back like 60, 70 years ago. So this is a long time ago. Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses were at the same level. Same number of members. And so fast forward to today. And they tell me that country, I've visited this country many times, and they said, we don't do door to door, because we don't want people to think we're Jehovah's Witness. I'm trying to follow the logic here. Okay? So I said, so how many Jehovah's Witnesses do we have in this country? And it's like 80 plus thousand actually. How many Adventists? 8,000. So I'm saying, you're right, we probably shouldn't do it like them if we don't want to grow. Wrong message for sure, but they have the confidence and the belief that, you have to go out there to find people. And they found a lot more than we have, because we're too afraid to look like them, when really what they're doing is what we should have been doing all along, with the right message. So it's a shame. What's missing is laborers. God takes care of the rest. We submit into His hands, and He takes care of the rest. It's amazing how He opens doors and guides us to the right places. He takes care of the rest. People will, ideally, wouldn't it be nice if ideally people would just walk inside the door? They come to the Glendale Seventh-day Adventist Church. They just walk. They just drive by. They're inspired. They're called. They pull into the parking lot. They park. They walk in here. And then they're saying, Pastor, we are ready for Bible studies. Wouldn't that be great? It happens once in a great while, but it's actually pretty rare. Am I telling you the truth? It's rare. People usually won't drive into the parking lot and come into church. We have to go and find them. It's rare that it happens like this. This is when we were doing meetings in Las Vegas. It can happen, but it doesn't usually happen like this. Ladies driving. And if you've ever been to Las Vegas for a convention, that's the only reason you'd go there. It is written, went there for good reason, because we went to Nineveh. Las Vegas prides itself as what? Sin City. That's why we went there. Someone once called it, as written, it said to us, why are you going to Las Vegas? It's the wrong place to go. And we said, no, it's the right place. It's Sin City. There's 1.5 million people there. They need Jesus. So there's this, and one thing there's in Las Vegas, there's billboards. I mean, tons of billboards. I've never, ever seen a city with as many billboards, and most of them, you want to just cover your children's eyes. They're just, what's that, Mommy? No. Don't look. Just don't look. Read your book. So this lady, she's at the end of her rope. Things are going from bad to worse. She's driving. She sees a billboard that says, need help, Bible studies, call this number. And so she memorizes the number. She gets home. She calls up the number. And it's the number of one of our pastors in Las Vegas. His name is Ken, just good guy. She calls him up and she says, hey, I saw your billboard and I'm interested in Bible studies. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it always happened like this? People call us up and want Bible studies, but we have to go find them. But once in a while it happens like this. This is a true story, by the way. And he answers, Ken says, billboard? Now, let me give you his side. He never paid for any billboard. No billboard. He never put up a billboard, never put a sign, nothing, no billboard. So you can see why he's answering the way he answers. And she says, yeah, that, the billboard, you're inviting people to call you if they're interested in Bible studies. And he says, he's a smart guy, he says, oh yeah, that billboard. So once in a while, you have awesome stories like this where God really literally leads people right to us. But most of the time, we have to go and find those people. They're out there. There's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. There's thousands of them. There's 10,000s of them. They're all around us. What's missing is what? Laborers. A few years ago, I came across this very, very good story from Gospel Workers. It's page 136 to 139. It's called Gathering the Fruit by Ellen White. And I want to read it with you here. You have it in your notes, I believe, but I'm going to read it for the sake of the people who are streaming who may not have it, and I want to make sure that they follow. Did I give you did you got my, yes. Let's put it on the screen here. Oh, I have to click it? I don't have the clicker. Go ahead and, oh yeah, I do. Oh, have mercy. Never mind. Let me read it. I'll read it slowly. Wow. Now, here's what I want you to do. Okay, listen carefully. This thing is loaded with lessons from the spirit of prophecy. Now, if you hear a lesson that is applicable to what we're talking about, again, we're talking about how many people are all around us and the need for laborers. Raise your hand and I'll pause. And if there's another microphone, maybe Vic, you can help me. If there's another microphone and it can rove around here, we'll give you the opportunity to respond. So this is going to be interactive, this portion here. And those of you who are watching, I'm looking at you. Make sure that you text me if you hear a lesson and I'll read it as you text me. So here it is, Gathering the Fruit, a Dream. In a dream given me September 29, 1886, I was walking with a large company who were looking for what? Berries. There were many young men and women in the company who were to help in gathering the fruit. So if you hear a lesson that's worth stopping, raise your hand. We seemed to be in a city, for there was very little vacant ground. But around the city there were open fields, beautiful groves, and cultivated gardens. A large wagon laden with provisions for our company went before us. Soon the wagon halted and the party scattered in every direction to look for fruit. Just making sure I don't miss anything here. All around the wagon were both high and low bushes, bearing large, beautiful whortleberries. That's kind of like blackberries, okay? But the company were all looking too far to see them. I began to gather the fruit nearby, but very carefully, for fear of picking the green berries, which were so mingled with the ripe fruit that I could pick only 1 or 2 berries from a cluster. Go ahead. I'll bring my microphone.
Looking too far away from home for the fruit.
That's right. Sometimes the fruit is pretty near, a lot closer than we think. Yes, I think, Vic, you've got... No? Oh, I thought you were handing the microphone to someone. Oh, right here? Sure. Here.
Everybody was looking for a massive amount of fruit, and she was picking 1 or 2 at a time. We need to learn to watch for the 1 or 2 beside us.
Yes, sir.
For fear of picking the green berries, which were so mingled with the ripe fruit that I could pick only 1 or 2 berries, we need to maybe focus on people who are ready. If they are not ready, we can just move on to those who are ready.
That's right. This is acknowledging that some people are not ready. The window of opportunity is not there. So don't look at them as they're bad, they're just not ready. In the future. Good point. Let me keep reading here. If Vic, you stop me if you see someone's hand. My eyes cannot go in both directions. Some of the nice large berries had fallen to the ground and were half consumed by worms and insects. Oh, thought I, if this field had only been entered before, all this precious fruit might have been saved. Is there a lesson here? Yes, ma'am.
That we shouldn't be looking for ourselves. We should be looking for them as a chef, as a fruit. Even though they are fallen from the ground, they can be used in something else. Like if somebody is falling down, they need help to understand why they're falling down.
And also the point here, in this case here, is the reason they had fallen to the ground is we were just, what? Too late. That's unfortunate. All right. Let me keep reading here. I will, however, pick these from the ground and see if there's any good in them. Even if the whole berry spoiled, I can at least show the brethren what they might have found if they had not been too late. Just then, 2 or 3 of the party came sauntering around where I was. They were chatting and seemed to be much occupied with each other's company. Seeing me, they said, "We have looked everywhere and can find no fruit." They looked with astonishment at the quantity I had. I said, "There are more to be gathered from these bushes." They began picking, but soon stopped, saying, "It is not fair for us to pick here. You found the spot, and the fruit is yours." But I replied, "That makes no difference. Gather wherever you can find anything. This is God's field, and these are His berries. It is your privilege to pick them." All right. There we go, right here. Thank you.
Back where it says, a lot of times where it talks about, I still will pick you from the ground and see if there's any good in it. A lot of times we think it's too late for somebody and we give up on them. But always, sometimes those people that you think are just too far gone are the ones that need it the most, and they're just waiting to hear.
That's right. That's right. All right, let me read on here. Let me tell you, this here is loaded with lessons here. And by the way, I like the point here that she makes, this is God's territory. Sometimes, this is this church's place. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is God's place. If God puts us there, let's not say, I'm not going to do anything here because I'm overstepping my boundaries. But soon, I seemed to be alone again. Every little while, I heard talking and laughing at the wagon. I called out to those who were there, "What are you doing?" They answered, "We could not find any berries, and as we were tired and hungry, we thought we would come to the wagon and take a lunch. After we have rested a while, we will go out again." Yes.
I was thinking of the one before, the paragraph you
I don't know. Is this
I-
working?
I was thinking of the paragraph that you read before.
Yes, ma'am.
And I thought about sometimes we sow, okay, we will preach to some people, and they might not accept right away. And then later on, someone comes and reap. And all of us are in the process of helping people to get to the kingdom.
Was there a hand here? Right here. Yep.
I'm trying to remember now. Oh, yeah. The things that we're talking about there are not, they're not wrong in themselves. There's nothing wrong with eating or socializing or, the things that they were doing, the other company. But that's not the reason they were there. And we can easily get caught up with, life and the things that it brings, We enjoy being with each other, and we love to do those things that those people were doing. But that's not what God is calling us to do.
Good observation. But I said, you have brought in nothing as yet. You are eating up all our supplies without giving us any more. I cannot eat now. There's too much fruit to be picked. You did not find it because you did not look close enough. It does not hang on the outside of the bushes. You must search for it. True, you cannot pick it by the handfuls, but by looking carefully among the green berries, you will find very choice fruit. Yes.
Sometimes it's easy to give up too easily, and you go out and you try once and it didn't work. So like the women you were talking about who went back to the car, and sometimes you go back and try again, and keep going and keep just putting yourself out there. Sometimes people will come to you and just say, okay, you've been talking about this, what's different about you? And you just have to keep searching.
I like what she says next. She goes on and says here, my small pail was soon full of berries, and I looked them to the wagon. And I took them, excuse me. I need stronger glasses. Said I, this is the nicest fruit that I ever picked, and I gathered it nearby, while you wearied yourselves by searching at a distance without success. Then all came to see the fruit. They said, these are high bush berries, firm and good. We did not think we could find anything on the high bushes, so we hunted for low bush berries only and found but few of these. What's the lesson here?
Never underestimate what you can do higher than what you could do lower. Because higher means that there's people up there that deserves to know the truth, and there's people in below deserves, but in between, we all need to understand that God has a purpose. I work in the field of cooking. I'm a chef, and food and people works together. So what she's saying is that even though that the berries you might think is not going to be good or it's not going to be plentiful, but that one berry can be the best berry that you ever can have.
All right, right here.
Maybe always be open to wherever the Lord opens the door, high or low, wherever.
Sometimes we're afraid to go to some of the places where higher society might be.
I'm thinking that we shouldn't look for the easy way out, but look to invest more time for that which is greater.
Profound. All right, let me keep reading here. Then I said, will you take care of these berries and then go with me to look for more fruit on the high bushes? But they had made no preparation to take care of the fruit. There were dishes and sacks in abundance, but they had been used to hold food. I became tired of waiting and finally asked, did you not come to gather fruit? Then why are you not prepared to take care of it? Boy, there's a message here as well.
A lot of times we're so busy worrying about bringing in converts. And then we get them there and then, hi, welcome, bye. And then we're kind of like, get them, but we don't care about keeping them and maintaining a relationship. It's got to be a relationship or they'll just walk right back out the door.
That's right. We invest a lot to bring them in. We need to invest a lot to make sure that we keep our new people. That's true. One responded, Sister White, we did not really expect to find any fruit where there were so many houses and so much going on. But as you seem so anxious to gather fruit, we decided to come with you. Pastor, you made us do it. We just came out and just to make you happy. Oh man, we hear this all the time. We thought we would bring enough to eat and would enjoy the recreation if we did not gather any fruit. So we go and really do not have what? The expectation to find anyone. And this is often what dooms us. No expectation. I answered, I cannot understand this kind of work. I shall go to the bushes again at once. The day is already far spent. Soon the night will be here in which we can gather no fruit. Some went with me, but others remained by the wagon to eat. In one place, a little company had collected and were busily talking about something which they seemed much interested. I drew near and found that a little child in a woman's arm had attracted their attention. I said, you have but little time and might better work while you can. The attention of many was attracted by a young man and a young woman who were running a race to the wagon. On reaching it, they were so tired that they had to sit down and rest. Others also had thrown themselves down on the grass to rest. Any observations here? I've come a little forward so I can get other people as well. All right, I'll keep reading. Oh, in the back. Yes, sir.
It's kind of going back a little bit, but it almost seems like there's a lesson here not to turn a failure into our own recreation or just something that becomes for just us.
That's right. That's right. Anyone else? All right, we'll take it home here. The attention of many, thus the day wore on and very little was accomplished. Sometimes we act a lot, we do a lot, but little is accomplished. I see this a lot. At last I said, brethren, you call this an unsuccessful expedition. And we've heard this all the time. Oh, this was not successful. This did not work. If this is the way you work, I do not wonder at your lack of success. Your success or failure depends upon the way you take hold of the work. There are berries here, for I have found them. Some of you have been searching for the low bushes in vain. Others have found a few berries, but the high bushes have been passed by simply because you did not, what? Expect to find fruit on them. You see that the fruit which I have gathered is large and ripe. In a little while, other berries will ripen, and we can go over the bushes again. This is the way in which I was taught to gather fruit. If you had searched near the wagon, you might have found fruit as well as I. Interestingly enough, you go by once, and doesn't mean that the territory is done, completed, right? Because the green fruit, the green berries, in a few weeks, in a few months, will be ripe. And that's why we can go over the same territory over and over and over again. There's no reason to say, well, we're done in this territory. It's over. Anyone else? All right. The lesson that you have this day given to those who are just learning how to do this kind of work will be copied by them. The Lord has placed these fruit-bearing bushes right in the midst of these thickly settled places, and He expects you to find them, but you have been altogether too much engaged in eating and amusing yourselves. You did not come to the field with an earnest determination to find fruit. You must hereafter work with more zeal and earnestness, and with an altogether different object in view, or your labors will never be successful. By working in the right way, you will teach the younger workers that such matters as eating and recreation are of minor importance. It has been hard work to bring the wagon of supplies to the ground, but you have thought more of the supplies than of the fruit you ought to carry home as a result of your labors. You should be diligent, first to pick the berries nearest you, and then to search for those farther away. After that, you can return and work nearby again, and thus you will be what? Successful. I thought this here is very insightful. And it really describes well our situation, our context. We're so eager to say there's no one left, and this territory is done, it's over, when in reality there's probably a lot of berries right around us. We just need to go and find them and work diligently. So that was the first misunderstanding about evangelism. The second one, I'll give it to you. The second one, let me get to it. Evangelism is preaching. When someone says evangelism, what comes to your mind usually? An evangelistic series. Someone standing behind a pulpit like John Bradshaw or Mark Finley or another great evangelist. They're preaching, people are there listening, and people think that is evangelism. But I'm here to tell you that is not evangelism. That is just a small portion of evangelism. It's like me saying, coming to Indianapolis and saying, well, you know, Indiana is just car racing and basketball. But the reality is, Indiana is much more than that. Indiana is the birthplace of baseball. Did you know that? What city? Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne. That's right. 1871, May 4 was the first professional baseball game. Indiana, it's the home to the city where there was the first electrically lighted city. Of course, you knew this, right? What city was that? Wabash. Did I pronounce it right? Wabash?
Wabash.
Wabash. Wabash. Did I say it right? Did you know it was the first electrically lighted city in the United States? Go check it out. See, when people think of Indiana, you got to think of more than just baseball and car racing. It's also the capital for popcorn. Garfield the cat comes from Indiana. Indiana is the covered bridge capital of the world. What county? Park County. Indiana is has world famous universities, has factories, farms, people. So to say that Indiana is just car racing and basketball is wrong. Evangelism is just preaching. It's wrong. Evangelism is so many other things. What is evangelism? Evangelism, I noticed in your building downstairs, you have a big sign that talks about pantry, where you're distributing food. Guess what that is? It's evangelism. I look out the window here and I see your Pathfinder trailer. What is that? That's evangelism. Sabbath school, what is that? That's evangelism. Your Sabbath morning worship service, it's evangelism, because at any given time you have guests coming in. You do have guests coming in who are searching and seeking. That's evangelism. What else is evangelism? The glow tracks. Do you do cooking classes here? Do you do health seminars here? All the things that we do to connect with the community, that is called evangelism. Bible expos. Oh, by the way, what am I saying? Right behind us, there's another building. We have a school, don't we? Guess what that is? That is evangelism. Believe me, our children are certainly worth whatever we can invest in them. We want to keep them in the church, walking with Jesus. That's evangelism for sure. Evangelism is what all of us do or should be doing every single day as we connect with people. So evangelism is much more than just, it's John Bradshaw preaching a series of meetings. It's everything that we do as a church. It's considered, should be considered what? Evangelism. Misunderstanding number 3. I'm sure you've never, ever, ever heard this. Public evangelism doesn't work anymore. Anybody hear this? Anybody say it? Oh, no one's going to raise their hand for that one. Public evangelism doesn't work. And I would say you're right. You're right. Public evangelism doesn't work if we do it the way we've always done it. We've been a victim of our own success. Let me explain. You go back 50 years ago when, we had a lot of evangelists and we go into towns. And by the way, let me just say this. I bet you quite a few of you are here because of public evangelism. Let me see your hands. How many of you are here because of public evangelism, you or someone in your family? It might be a grandparent, it might be a parent, but public evangelism has touched just about every person in the church, directly or indirectly. 50, 60 years ago, it was pretty simple. There were only maybe 3 channels on television. There was no internet. So you go into the town, you mail a bunch of handbills, Ma and Pa get the handbill, and it's like, hey, Ma, look at this. This looks interesting. Look at those beasts. I've always wondered about Revelation and those beasts. We've got nothing else going on tonight. Might as well go. So they'd go, they'd hear, and a bunch of baptisms would take place. Well, guess what today? People don't even check their mailboxes anymore every day. Instead of 3 channels on television, you have 1,000 channels. And then of course, kids these days and people these days, they don't even watch television. Television, by the way, is in decline. People watch, as they want to watch. They select a program and they don't even tune in. They watch it without commercials. Netflix and Hulu and all of those things. People don't watch the way they used to. And so a handbill comes in the mail, no one even sees it. It gets lost because people are not interested in those things anymore. So if we keep doing it the same old way, just send a handbill and hope that people will show up, while in the past you'd have 10 per 1,000 show up to a series of meetings, today you have less than 1 per 1,000 who will show up to hear a meeting. It's much harder to get a crowd. So if we approach it the same old way, it's not going to work. We should have been doing it all along the right way. And the right way is with a plan, the evangelism cycle, where you build relationships with people, you connect with people, and then people will come because you, as their friend, have invited them to come to the meetings. Way different. Way different. But because we were so successful, we became lazy. We became lazy. I'll just put $100. The church will just pay for the mailing, and people will come, and the evangelist will do his work. We'll applaud, and everybody will be happy. We'll go back to our old ways once we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, this does not work. It's a journey. It's not an event. Everything we do is evangelism, and we all have to participate one way or another. And when we do this and we focus on the relationship, building relationships with people, then we will begin to see serious success. And that's why it is written we didn't announce it is written as part of this 6 months before the meetings, because that would be doing it the same old way. We are working with you 2 years in advance. We're bringing in help. We're going to be working with you, training and supporting you because we believe it's a journey. It's a journey, and we're here to help you to make this journey as successful as possible. So when we do our meetings as churches in 2020, then we're going to see far more results than if we rely on the old way of doing it. And I think this is a good time, my friend, to take a break. Is that okay? Anybody? Let's be back in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, but this is a good place to pause. I'm going to talk about the evangelism cycle in just a little bit. 10 minutes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 10 minutes are up. Let's resume here. I hope that our folks who are watching from somewhere else are still with us. I do know of 2 churches that are watching. I do want to acknowledge them. The Fort Wayne Church with Pastor Victor Yeager. Thank you for your text, Vic. It was good to receive it, and we're glad that you and your church have joined us. And also the church in Terre Haute. Terre Haute? I'll tell you how to pronounce it. Can I help you out? In French, you'd say Terre Haute. So, I'm in Indiana now. Anyway, you know how to say it well. I just want to acknowledge all of you as well who are joining us. Sorry for butchering your name in correct French. All right, well, let's resume here. We left it off at the plan. And the plan is the evangelism cycle. That's what you want to follow, the evangelism cycle. If you follow the cycle of evangelism, you'll be safe. Now, let me tell you where it comes from. Because there's no magic wand, there's no shortcut to this. You know, people come to the seminar and they hope, man, I'm going to go to this seminar, I'm going to go to this training, and we're going to find the magic way of increasing the attendance in our church overnight. It's like me. I need to lose a few pounds. Someone tells me if you take this pill in 2 months, you'll look like Vic Van Schaik. I mean, look, he's nice, fit, and trim. You do this, and you'll look just like him. Don't I wish? Don't I wish? To lose weight takes what? Sacrifice. There goes the Swiss chocolate and the Swiss cheese. Ice cream, the gelatos from Italy. You know, there goes all that stuff. You got to stop. You got to exercise. There's no shortcut in becoming fit and trim. If someone tells you take this pill and it will work, don't believe them. There's no such thing, because I've asked my doctors. Am I correct? I'm asking another doctor here. Yeah, but even then, you still have to make some adjustment in your lifestyle. How about getting rich? You know, I hear this on the radio all the time. Oh, you attend my seminar, and we're going to help you with your wealth. You're going to become wealthy. There's no such thing as overnight wealth, except, I guess, the lottery. But that's gambling, so forget that. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no shortcut to increasing the size of your church. It's hard work. From our story with Ellen White, one berry at a time. One relationship at a time. But if every member does that, then that's when you'll see some results. The evangelism plan is the plan to follow. And it comes from the farming plan. The farmers, let me tell you what, I don't think farmers get enough respect. You know, people say, well, you know, farmers, they don't have much education. Let me tell you, we should sit at their feet and learn from them. They know a whole lot more than we realize. And when it comes to running a church and growing a church, the farmer has the answer. Let's go through the farming cycle. I bet you some of you have grown up on farms. Look at that. So, what's the first thing the farmer does? All right, I hear the word prep. Did I hear the word prep? Preparation. Let me say this. Before the farmer preps the field, doesn't he prepare himself? When it's cold, there's not a whole lot of work that can be done outside, but there's a whole lot of work that can be done to make sure that your machinery is working properly. Is that true? Because once the temperatures go up, you don't want to be then having to fix your stuff. You want to make sure everything is in perfectly working order, because once the weather is good, you want to go full throttle. Is this correct, farmers? I believe so. So first and foremost, the farmer prepares himself. Make sure that he's fully stocked with the grains that he's going to sow, that everything is ready for when the time comes to work outdoors. So number two, what is number two? Then prepare the soil. That makes sense. You want to make sure that the soil is prepared, ready for the sowing, which comes number three. Then you sow the fields. What comes afterward? The cultivation. You know, of course, God does his part. He brings the rain and all that we need. But it's true that the farmer still has a lot of work to make sure that the grain and the what has been planted is well cared for. Now, once that happens, what comes next? You've put all this time and effort to then do the harvest. The wheat, the barley, the corn. Here it is, the harvest. I hear the story. It's not a true story, of course. There's this farmer driving around, and he sees this dude from the city who's bought a field, and he's hoping to work this field. And this guy, this city guy who's working the field, has brought the machinery out. He's standing by the field, and he's just standing there looking at the field in dismay. The farmer goes up to him and he says, "What's happening? What are you doing?" And the guy says, "Man, I bought a terrible field. There's nothing here. Look, there's nothing. I'm ready, and there's nothing. Bad field." The farmer says, "Well, what did you sow?" "Sow?" And that's often what we do. And that's why, again, I say, people will say, public evangelism doesn't work. If you don't do the evangelism cycle, the farming cycle, if you don't do all the things that precedes it, why do you expect to have a harvest? It's foolishness. The farmer will tell you it's foolishness. It's foolishness. So is the problem with public evangelism, or is the problem by the fact that we have not done what needed to be done beforehand? Tell me. So public evangelism works, harvesting works, but you have to put in the work. Let me tell you, a few years ago we went to Gweru, Zimbabwe. Gweru. Is this your home country? You'll love this story. You'll love this story. I've got their attention. You speak Shona or Ndebele? Both. Awesome. Loved it there. Now, people will say, not you, but people will say there are certain parts of the world, all you need to do is put out a baptistry, fill it up with water, and the baptistry will act like a magnet. People will just walk and go in a baptistry, and you can baptize hundreds and thousands. Philippines is one of those places. I mean, people say, Philippines, Zimbabwe. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's not true. We did baptize over 600 in Zimbabwe with Pastor John. And people say, see? But what you don't know is how much the members are working. Ladies and gentlemen, they are working. They are working. In one community where we had a smaller meeting, they had church members who left their home and actually camped in the community there, brought their tents, and just camped out there. And what they would do leading up to the meetings is go to every single home in that community and just connect with people and say, hey, guess what? Something cool, great, wonderful is happening here. We just wanted to give you a personal invitation. They invested themselves in the work. I was sitting with a pastor. I went with the pastor to do a Bible study, clearing someone for baptism. And man, I thought, just remember, I'm thinking people are they just come around just like this. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this is going to be so quick. He's just going to rattle through the whole thing, and a person is just going to be set up for baptism the next week. Not at all. The person was pushing back. And the questions he was asking were the same questions that I have encountered here as a pastor. So I'm thinking, you see, they have the same questions. They have the same questions about the law. They have the same questions about the secret rapture. They have the same questions about the Sabbath. They have the same questions about clean and unclean foods. They have the same questions. They push back. And the pastor, I just watched him. He's just navigating through this, guiding them through the Bible. He says, you see what the Bible says? He let the Bible do its own talking. And by the time we were over, the person said, I have something seriously to think about. It wasn't a done deal. I'm telling you, it's not as easy as you think it might be. But these people, my brothers and sisters, they're working hard. They go into the community, and it's all about, someone said, building relationships. And that's why at the end of the day, instead of having a few people be baptized, they have hundreds be baptized when the whole church is involved in the work. So stop thinking, and I had to change that in my own mind, stop thinking that in some countries it's easy. It's not, but they put in the work, they work the cycle, and they have the harvest. All right, let's talk about the evangelism cycle. I want to touch on this because it's very important and walk through it. I know we talked about the farming cycle, but now let's apply it in the church because that's the roadmap. Ladies and gentlemen, when you go to your churches, that's what you have to implement. The roadmap is the evangelism cycle. You follow the evangelism cycle, you will have results. And as the pastor and the board implements the cycle, you're going to see more and more results year after year. The first year, the harvest may be a little smaller, but you keep at it, the next year will be bigger, and the next year will be bigger still. By the way, I didn't finish the whole farming cycle. After the harvest, what comes? Yeah, some of you farmers, you should have caught me and says, Yves, the cycle is not over. There's more to go. What else comes after the harvest? Storage, preservation. I mean, believe me, the farmer doesn't have the harvest and then he says, I'm done. Then you have to store it. I mean, you don't invest all this time and effort to do nothing with what you've gathered. Sometimes we've done this in the church, haven't we? And then what comes after that? After the storage, the preservation, what happens? They sell it. That's right. You start all over again. The successful farmer doesn't say, this was a great year. I'm going to rest now. No. He gets ready for the next year. And then the next year. And then the next year. The evangelism cycle is the exact same thing. So let me go through it with you real quick here. First, it's our personal preparation. And I would suggest a good time to do this as you look at the evangelism cycle. I like to start beginning of the year. And we're close enough to the beginning of the year, so this works well in our own lives. But beginning of the year, it's when you make decisions. This is when you say, Lord, this year, by your power and grace, I submit myself into your hands, and I want to be used by you. So this is maybe a little bit more prayer time, a little bit more study. My recommendation in terms of that, I would pull out some of the good books of the Bible that help us with the purpose of evangelism. The Gospels are powerful, but one of my favorite is actually the Acts of the Apostles. I mean, when you read through the stories there, how the Holy Spirit moved Peter and the disciples and Paul, and it's It's motivating, it's energizing. So read through those books. Maybe pull out the Ellen White books, also Acts of the Apostles, the book Evangelism, Christian Service. Those are books that will inspire you. But you need to pause and say, I need to take care of myself. I need to prepare myself for this work. You know, I'll use this story here. This young man, he decided that, let me find it here to make sure I say it right. He decided that he wanted to be a lumberjack, so he signed on for a business. They were cutting some trees, and this is in the olden days before the chainsaws, okay? And so he went to the foreman, he said, hey, I'm a hard worker, and the guy said, well, let me see you cut a tree down. So he pulled out his axe, and in just a few chops, he felled the tree. And the guy's like, man, this would be a great addition. So he hired him on the spot. And he said, on Friday, you'll get paid every week. So the guy went to work, and he worked hard. He really, really worked hard. Hardly took any breaks. He's just working and chopping and chopping and chopping and just working very hard. Come Thursday, the foreman calls him up and he says, hey, we're done with you. Go to the office, pick up your pay for this week. We're done. He says, why? I've been working so hard. I worked so hard. I hardly took any breaks, and you know this. And the foreman said, well, on the first day, you cut a lot of trees. On the second day, less. On the third day, even less. You started as number one. You ended up being last in terms of production. And so the foreman asked him the question that should be asked. He says, did you stop to not rest, but sharpen your axe? Sees you were so busy that you forgot to sharpen your axe. And you know, this is what we need to do. We need to sharpen our axe. We need to pause and make sure that we're connected to the vine. Because you know the story from the Gospel of John. You know, those that are connected to the vine produce much fruit, more fruit. Sometimes God has to prune us so we produce more. But if you're not connected to the vine, you will produce no fruit. And that's the key. Personal preparation. You need to be connected to Jesus Christ. So it's not just something you do in January and then you forget about it. It's something that you do on an ongoing basis. But I think early on in the year, it's a good time to do a little bit more of preparation, a little bit more connecting, a little bit more prayer. And that's why many churches, they have, and I'm sure this one does too, has 10 days of prayer. You've done this. 40 days of prayer, like the book that Dennis Smith wrote. Good to do. Number two, what follows number two? That would be soil preparation. So what are these things? These are bridge building events. And I just want to go through some of these bridge building events. And maybe you can add a few. But these are events that connect us with the community. Now, you may think, I found this out to be true. We may think that just because we're on a busy road, and you happen to be on a busy road, this is, I would say, Pastor, this is a good location. I mean, this is not just a good location. Believe me, I've been to churches where it's like, oh, have mercy. You know, when the time of trouble comes, this church does not have to go hide. This church is already hidden. It's already hidden. Don't worry about going in the wilderness. You are in the wilderness. This church is not hidden. Great location. I look out here and I see Macy. Okay, now, great location. Do you think people know you're here? Okay. I'm probably going to offend someone. Please forgive me. But the reality is, you'd be surprised how many people don't know we're here. I'm sure a lot of people know you're here, we're here. But you'd be surprised. Oh, you mean there's a church in Glendale, an Adventist church? Really? Oh, I never knew. So our goal, and some churches do it better than others, and I'm sure this is one that does it better, but our goal is to make sure people know that there is a caring group of Christians right here, and it's the Seventh-day Adventist Church. What are some of the things that we can do to do that? Just shout them out. These are maybe things you are already doing. Just shout them out. Go ahead. Cooking classes. Absolutely. What else? Medical missionary work in our community here. You know, leading up to our meetings, we're going to do pathways to health. That's part of building a bridge. Yes, ma'am, right here. Health expos. Oh, absolutely. You know, giving a financial seminar. No question. People don't know how to manage their monies. What else? Concerts. You know, a great time to do concerts is the season called summer. Christmas and Easter, absolutely. You know, people will say, oh, I don't believe in Christmas. You know, I know Jesus was not born on December 25. We all know Jesus was not born on December 25. And you know what? It doesn't matter whether you believe or not in Christmas. I think Christmas is over-commercialized by far. But let's not overlook the fact that the community seems to be a little bit more spiritually sensitive. It's a fact. It's a fact. In my church in Bakersfield, California, we used to do something called Walk Through Bethlehem. So for the month of October and November, we build on 1 acre, we build a makeshift town of Bethlehem. This is the lady. Why am I not surprised? We needed you in Bakersfield. But anyway, we somehow managed without Kathy. And we built our little town of Bethlehem. And every year we'd have about 4,000 people walk through. And it was just, you know, you probably have more than that in your, but it was just wonderful. People were coming through. They're calling us weeks in advance. Are you still doing it? Do we need to reserve? Yes, we're doing it. And at the end, they would all receive a wonderful piece of literature and an invitation to accept Jesus Christ. People are more sensitive. So you look for opportunities. What else? What other bridge building events? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yes, how about Vacation Bible School? And other programs like this for children. Anyone else? Working with teenagers. Let me read you a list. The list is infinite. Okay, the list is infinite. You come up with things, you're going to find people interested. Stop smoking, vegetarian cooking classes, bread baking. So within health, you can have subcategories. A dinner with the doctor. Do you do here, dinner with the doctor? Oh, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. You have a doctor, you have dinner. People love to come and eat, and you have a health lecture, and you have a good, healthy meal, and they do this in the Chattanooga area, and we have hundreds of people attending. Awesome. Stress reduction, reversing diabetes, depression recovery, divorce recovery, parenting, basic auto repair. Why not? Health expos, health lectures, weight loss. Meeting, you know, looking for specific needs in the community. Meeting people's needs. You're doing that downstairs with your pantry. And you know, someone was telling me, oh, you know what we do? We do a gardening seminar. It's like, would people really come to that? And he said, you won't believe it. We have 30 members in our church, and we had over 100 people attend our gardening seminar. It's like, have mercy. So you look for the specific felt needs. There's no limits to this. There's no limits. But what it does, it gets people on our church here, at our church, at our school, and we're just making what? friends with them. We're making connections. We're not trying to make them Seventh-day Adventists. We're just, again, preparing the field. So you see, when you do those bridge building events in the right order, leading up to the harvest, it does make sense. So let me ask you another question. When you do those bridge building events, do you keep a database? If you don't, shame on you. You have to. I mean, you have to do it very carefully. You have to do it very respectfully. But when people come, you want to make sure that you sign them up. You know, this is part of the process to be part of the class, the seminar, the expo, whatever you're doing. But you want to keep a list, a database. Why? Because these are people that hopefully you will and can follow up and build a connection with. Give you an example. So someone comes to your dinner with the doctor. And they come and they appreciate it. Imagine doing this. You and a friend of yours decide that, hey, they don't live too far from us. We're going to go do a survey, see if they appreciated our seminar. So it's a simple follow-up survey. And you say, my name is Yves Monnier. This here is my friend Mary. And we're just visiting you on behalf of the Glendale Seventh-day Adventist Church, where you recently attended a dinner with the doctor. Yes, that was really good. By the way, what's the hardest thing about visiting people and connecting with people? Finding them home. That's going to be the hardest thing by far. So you're going to go there and no one's home. It's like, don't give up. Don't give up. I'll tell you a story now about not giving up. I have two friends, Mike and Phyllis, in Las Vegas. This is our series in Las Vegas. They were following up a Bible study request card. I'll come back to Mary and me knocking at the door, okay? So they go to this gentleman's home. His name is John. John has requested Bible studies. So they go to his home. They're ready with lesson number 1 to deliver as he has requested, okay? They knock at the door. No one answers. They're very frustrated. So, and disappointed, okay? I mean, it's like, And they decide, well, we'll come back another time. They come back a second time, not home. A third time, not home. A fourth time, not home. And you would think at this point you would simply give up and just mail the lesson and hope for the best. But they said, no, because it's all about building a relationship. If we do it by mail, we're not building a relationship. The mail carrier is. And he doesn't care about their salvation anyway. So they finally go back a fifth time. Still no one home. A sixth time, no one home. But there's something special about the number 7. So they go back a seventh time and it's, I hope he's home. But they go there expecting that probably he will not be home. They knock at the door and lo and behold, the door opens. And the first thing out of Phyllis's mouth is, boy, you're hard man to find at home. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me just be clear. That's not the right way to start a visit. Don't do that. But she did it in such a disarming way. And she said, we've been trying to find you home. He says, Ben, I've been waiting for you. I was hoping you'd come. I've been waiting for my lesson. And this gentleman, John, I'll never forget, eventually came to the harvest. Again, this is part of the connecting with people. And then later on, he came to the harvest and he made his decision to be part of the church. But it all started with someone who persevered, who then gave Bible studies. And the rest was marvelous. So here I am with Mary. And so the person actually is home. And so we go through a quick survey. So you came to our dinner with the doctor. Did you enjoy it? What was your favorite food? I'm just coming up with things. It's very easy to come up with a survey. Just take a few moments with the pastor, create a nice survey, put the heading of the church, the logo of the church, so they know that you are with dinner with the doctor. And what are some of the things that you would like for us to do at dinner with the doctor if we do it in the future? I would love for you to talk about this or that. And they'll give you all sorts of suggestions. And then you can ask this very innocuous question and say, hey, you know, we have a very good series on the Bible. Would you be interested in it? If you don't ask, you won't have an answer. And the problem with us, we're too afraid to ask the question. I think if I hadn't asked the question today, I would still be single. I mean, you have to ask the question. I mean, I wonder if she'll say yes. I hope she says yes. And she said yes. And we have 2 beautiful children. And I can't wait to see my bride tomorrow when I go home. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same thing here. If you don't ask the question, you won't have an answer. But let's say they say no, they're not interested. Hey, no big deal, no problem. If you hadn't asked, it would have been the same answer anyway. So if they say no, no problem. You just, you're doing a survey, not interested. Then we talk about the green berries, right? Hey, not ready now, maybe in the future. Don't worry about it, no big deal. But you know what? Along the way, when you do the follow-up survey, I'm telling you, it works, it works, it works, it works. You do the follow-up survey of bridge building events that you've done, just a follow-up survey. It could be a follow-up survey if you've done an auto repair. How did you enjoy the mechanic? Did you learn something? What other things would you like to learn? Oh, you like to learn how to change a flat tire. Absolutely, we can do this. You learn a lot, but they know you're a church. And there's nothing wrong in asking. By the way, we have an excellent series of Bible studies. Would you be interested in a class? And if they say yes, guess what you have in your back pocket? You have, hey, I happen to have lesson number 1. Here it is. Now, this is not the time to sit down and study the Bible with them. You're still building that relationship. Dropping the lessons is just an excuse to build that relationship. People go about it the other way around. They think, well, I've got to teach them the truth. I've got to pound in them what the Bible says. They've got to know about the law, and they've got to know about the Sabbath, and they've got to know about the way to eat, and they've got to know about what happens when a person dies. No. You don't want to do this. First and foremost, you want to build a relationship, a trust. When you've built that trust, then you have the right to share some of these things. I mean, what's Jesus' method? Didn't he build a relationship with people? Didn't he win their confidence? Isn't that what Ellen White says? He won their confidence. And to win their people's confidence, you have to build a relationship. And then he bid them follow me. Sometimes we ask people to follow us before we've won their confidence, and then we wonder why we're struggling. Build a relationship. Then you drop off lesson number 2. Are you ready to study the Bible with me? No, don't do that. Drop off lesson number 2 and you talk about the weather. And can you believe what's happening in the world? Oh, I sure hope Jesus comes back soon. Just little things like this. You sew them in there. How do you know when a person is ready for sit-down Bible study? When that trust is high enough and the mistrust and the suspicion people have is down. Keep in mind, people are suspicious of other people. Don't assume. You build that relationship. You know that they're ready for Bible studies when they start asking questions about what you've dropped off. And when they say, we've been doing a lesson. When you see those little things, then you can say, hey, seems you're asking some questions. Seems you're doing the lessons. Would you be interested in sitting down with me and studying the Bible? The worst they can say is what? If they say no, again, the berry's green. Don't worry about it. No big deal. Oh, next week I'll drop off next one. No problem. See, sometimes we get all offended because someone says no. Don't be offended. They're just not ready. Just continue to build that relationship. One of these days, They may be ready, and if they're not ready, no problem. You're keeping that channel of communication open. You know, I think of parents and their children. I'm going to come close to home for some of you. Sometimes our children become these green berries. And sometimes as parents, we don't understand, and we try to press hard. And in pressing too hard, we create more problems and close the doors more than we should. So, you know, our children, even with our family members, we have to approach it the very same way. If they say no, pull back, because what you want to do with your family is make sure that you maintain that open channel of communication. They don't look at you as this person who's obsessed, who's trying to pound in them the Bible. You don't want to do this. You look for the door to open, and if it doesn't, you pull back, but you maintain that communication. You talk about the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about there. They're always next year. Always next year. But you talk about things that, you know, you want to maintain that. You know what I'm saying. You may not care about the Colts. You care about Jesus, but because you care about that person for Jesus, you'll be interested in the things that are of interest to them. Amen. I'll give you a story here, talking about two stories, actually, talking about being interested in the things that interest other people for the sake of building that relationship. I hope you hear me. This is so crucial. This is more crucial than you realize. And by the way, Jack Phillips, who's going to come, he's going to fill in the blanks and do it so much better than I am. I'm just giving you the teasers. There's a whole lot more. Pastor, this is the pastor. He goes to visit a husband of one of his church members. She's a strong member. He's not. Has never wanted to be part of the church. But he says, you know, she's a member. That's the husband. I'm going to connect with him nonetheless. Okay, this happened to be a pastor, but believe me, this could be any of you. So he visits the guy, and the guy's like, and he discovers along the way that the guy is interested in the great composers. So he says before his next visit, you know what, I'm going to go to Wikipedia, very reliable place. Actually, it's probably not as bad as it used to be. Okay? But I know when people work on term papers, they're told, do not go to Wikipedia. You got to go to the real sources. But he goes to Wikipedia and reads about Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and the great composers. He reads up on it, goes and visits, and he starts talking about Bach and Mozart and Beethoven. And the guy says, man, hey, you know a lot. and just like this, he connected with him on a level that the guy could relate. And he did this every time he would visit. Short visit, but he'd talk about the great composers, something that interested this guy. This is what we need to remember. Talk about the things that interest the person, because it's not about you, it's about them. God through you to reach them. It's not about you. It's not about you telling your stories and telling them about your family and telling them about your exploits. It's about you listening and connecting with them on the things that they like to do. Long story short, this guy actually came to meetings we did in Chattanooga, and this guy on night number 3 said, this is it, I want to be part of this. It's like, wow. So I told this story in Australia about connecting with people with the things that are of interest. So one of the people who attended, just like you, this was 2 weeks ago, he really heard this, and I'm saying, wow, he really heard me. So he's going on a walk. This is a cool story. He goes on a walk, and he runs into something that was dropped on the trail. And he looked at it, and it was I think, some important document, official document that someone had misplaced. So there was an address with this document, and he says, I'm going to be a good neighbor. I'm going to make sure he gets it back. So he goes to the guy's house, and it was a lavish, big, expensive house. He knocks at the door, and unfortunately, Randy, no one was, because you know the hardest thing about this work is finding someone home. So he looks at the driveway, and there is in the driveway a car that I don't think we know too well in the United States. We know it well in Italy. It's called an Alfa Romeo. They started advertising for them here. Alfa Romeo, an exotic Italian sports car. He says, before I come back, I heard Pastor Monnier talk about connecting people with things they like. So he called a friend of his who's a mechanic, and he says, hey, tell me all you know about Alfa Romeos. The guy said, blah, 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 blah. So the next day or a few days later, he goes to the home, and fortunately he finds someone home, and he connects with them, and he says, here's your document. The guy's like, oh, thank you. And he says, oh, by the way, Alfa Romeos. And they had a discussion about Alfa Romeos. They connected. And then before leaving, he says, hey, by the way, you know, and he stumbled around, and he says, you know, I've got a study guide here, lesson number 1. It's been a blessing to me. Do you mind if I leave it with you? How can you say no? He says, you know, in a week or two, I'll drop by and give you lesson number 2. Can I do that? And the guy says, sure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not rocket science. This can be done by every single person. You focus on the person, and then you share what you need to, but you don't share and then try to build a relationship. We've gone about it the wrong way all along. It's all about building trust, building a relationship, and going very slow and easy, and letting the Spirit of God just guide you through it, just like that. So, let me get back here on topic. We talked about seed sowing. Well, actually, we didn't. We talked about soil preparation. Seed sowing. I touched on it a little bit. That's actually when you're hoping that the connection you've made will lead to something more, and that is hopefully Bible studies, hopefully a personal weekly connection. Where can you find people that you connect on such a level? Let's name some of the places. Well, it could come from your database from your bridge building events. That's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. We're sitting on a gold mine. We have all these names. The sooner you connect with them after they've attended an event, the greater likelihood of you having success long term. Another way to connect with people in the community is, for example, to do a Bible study request card mailing. And we probably will do this in many churches in Indiana. We have what is called a mega mailer at It Is Written. And it's called mega because it's big. Some of you who've been pastors, who are pastors, you know the Something Wonderful card. You remember the Something Wonderful card? I mean, they're this big. The mega mailer dwarfs those Something Wonderful cards. It's big. So when you get it in the mail, people see it. And we've had a 10 per 1,000 average response, which is phenomenal. 10 per 1,000 who respond. So you send that out, you send about 1,000. You don't want to do too many. You want to do just enough where your church members can follow up. You do 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You just calculate because you don't want to send more than you can. I had a little church, 25 people. This is a church in Tennessee, little church. And they said, we're gonna blanket our community. Had they talked to me beforehand, I think I could have helped them out. 25 church members, bless their little heart, they would say in the South. And they decided to send 10,000 of these. 10,000, I said, they called me afterward, and they said, we just mailed 10,000, what should we do? I said, you did what? I said, okay, let's have a meeting. And we had a video conference. This is the coolest thing, where we can actually connect with people, without doing it in person, face to face. You can still do it with video. Technology is awesome. So I met with their church members, and here they were. We used this thing called GoToMeeting, and there's other apps you can use to do it. So I met with them, and I said, have mercy, what did you folks do? Oh, they said, oh, Yves, we're not going to, it doesn't work here. We just did it because we're hoping to generate just a handful. I said, you don't know what you've just done. This was about a month ago, okay? And so the next week, I connected with them, and all the cards come through. It is written. I said, you don't know how many have come through for you. But by the time we were done, they had over 100. And I think it's not over yet, because they come trickling in for a while. Well over 100, 25 church members, 25 church members. I'm talking 25 church members following over 100 people. But they said, Yves, we did it. We're going to follow them up. And they did. They actually did. They were amazing. I've never seen a church quite like this. They said, we got ourselves in trouble. We're going to get ourselves out of trouble. And they started visiting and connecting. And when we were having our weekly meeting by video, they were telling me their stories. And we did this and we did that. And in one case, they were a little bit too energetic. There's some do's and don'ts when you do door-to-door work. In one case, the garage door was open. And they went into the garage door and knocked on the kitchen door through the garage door. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a no-no. Okay? You don't do that. You stay outside. You walk on the sidewalk. You don't even park in the driveway. Never park in the driveway. You park on the street. You're very careful, because people are what? Suspicious, and they're watching. They're suspicious, okay? They're suspicious. Who are these strangers coming to our house? So we've got to act in a very respectful manner. So they walked, they're pretty, no problem. The garage door is open. We'll just knock at the door. They freaked those women out. They freaked them so bad, they called It Is Written. And I said, don't let them ever come back to our house. We were so scared. Lesson learned. So I'm just sharing this with you, but they actually did very well, and I need to call them when I get back home and find out how things have been since I traveled for the last 2-3 weeks. But just be ready. Don't let those cards or those interests grow cold. Give you an example. We had a church that did a mailing. And then the cards came back, and you know what happens. Cards come back, and you stand up front, and you show the stack of cards. You're here, and you say, praise the Lord. Look at all the people who are requesting Bible studies. And everyone said, and you should. Because each card represents what? A person asking Bible studies. It's a soul. It's not just paper. This here is a person. Right? After they said amen, they put the cards in the pastor's office, put them on the shelf, and forgot about them. Finally, someone said, those cards, what did we do with them? This is several months later. Oh, we didn't do anything. We should go and probably follow them up. So they follow up the cards. And guess what happened? Remember the fruit that fell to the ground? They went to one door. I remember the story. They went to one door and they said, oh, yeah, we remember sending this card. But since you didn't come, we had some Mormons who came by. And now we're attending the Mormon church. I tell you what, if that doesn't cut through your heart, I don't know what will. They were ready. They were ready. And we missed the opportunity. How many out there are ready, but we don't follow them up for whatever reason? Whatever reason. Churches need to organize themselves into teams of action that go 2 by 2. And you don't even need to go cold turkey. I mean, sure, cold turkey, you'll find a lot of people. I told you about our visit in Australia, door to door. I mean, just cold turkey. We didn't know what to expect. We did the survey, and at the end of the 2 days we did the visiting, we had 61 people saying, yes, we want Bible studies. But I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about people that have either requested, if you've sent out a mega mailer, or people that come from your database, but you have more people around you than you realize who are ready for the picking. We just need to go out there and actually do it. Well, I told you I would finish early, and I need to keep my word. I have so much more to share. If you saw my notes, you wouldn't believe it. Let me quickly finish here, this section, and then I want to show you a box here. Cool, absolutely cool box. So once you are following up these people, and now you have to start giving Bible studies, and I'll show you about how to give Bible studies. The two fears people have is, how do I find people? How do I share? The hardest thing about doing this is what? Finding someone at home. Once you connect with them, just use this thing that God gives you by the Holy Spirit called common sense. That probably will guide you through most things. Common sense. You know, if I could sum up today's training, and that would be common sense. Just use good common sense, and remember, build relationships. But once you use this, you're going to be fine. After you've given Bible studies, then comes the harvest. That's why we do meetings. People will say, do we really need to do meetings? If we're doing the rest, is it really necessary to do meetings? Friends, let me tell you, evangelistic meetings is one of the best ways to help people make a decision. Something happens in the dynamics of a larger group. Something happens when the message is preached by someone like John Bradshaw, Pastor Vic Van Schaik. Gotta say it right. Tongue twister. Something happens when it's preached by your Pastor Ramon. Something happens in a large dynamic. People respond. Yes, evangelistic meetings still work as long as you follow the cycle, because people who may not make a decision during a Bible study may make one in a public setting like this. Let me tell you about a young lady. Her name, I'll give her, I know her real name, but since we're being taped here, her name is Diana, let's say, in Boston. And the Bible workers were working with her, and they gave her Bible studies. And there's always one thing that stumbles people. And for her, that one thing was the Sabbath. It's like, And she's like, And she wouldn't make a decision. And they were very clear. They went through the study. I mean, they answered all her questions, but still, she hesitated. So John Bradshaw comes along. And you may say, here comes the guy, a knight, shining armor, riding the white horse. I hope that's not how you perceive the evangelist, but sometimes that's how it happens. So he comes into town. She's invited to the meetings. She says, sure, I'll go. I mean, they're friends. And there's no problems inviting her. Hey, I've got a good friend of mine who's doing a series. You might be interested. And she says, sure, because you've built that what? That relationship. So she comes, even though she's not there with the Sabbath. She comes and she listens, and John covers the Sabbath, and it's like, oh, now I get it. It's like, didn't you get it before? He didn't say anything new. It's the same thing. But what happens in a group dynamics, it's like, now I get it. And right there and then she decided to make the decision to keep the seventh-day Sabbath. Why didn't she do it before? I don't know. But something happens in a group setting. It really does. Trust me. When the appeals are made and the music is playing and people all around you are praying, something special takes place. And that's why evangelistic meetings still do work within the framework of the evangelism cycle. And here the evangelist calls, people stand, people come forward. You know, Diana is probably looking at this and she's saying, he's talking to me. And she comes forward and makes the decision as well. Something happens. Ladies and gentlemen, why would you do the whole cycle and then say, well, I'm not going to do the harvest? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And then, of course, you have the preservation. You need to make sure that you do everything you can to connect those new people to the church. And I could go on and on about this because there's a lot of things that can be done, that should be done to preserve your gains. Now, let me back up. The Bible studies. Oh, I love this. Thank you so much, Kathy, for bringing this to me. Have you seen this before? Oh, what is it? I love you, man. That's the right question. This here is to help you give Bible studies, the best Bible studies ever. This here, I know I'm going to sound like a salesman, and I don't mean to because I'm not. But I really believe in these cards. Let me show you first. Have you heard of the It Is Written Bible Study Guides? Okay. Have you seen them? You haven't. Go to the ABC and you'll see them. They're very good. In my opinion, I'm very neutral because I'm from Switzerland. The It Is Written Bible Study Guides are the best. That comes from a totally neutral, impartial person who happens to work for It Is Written. We have 25 lessons. And so in this box, I have 25 sets of cards. Each set of card represents the questions in the lessons. So if lesson 1 has 16 questions, I have here in lesson 1, 16, how many cards? I already gave you the answer. How many cards? 16 cards. The cards simply have the name and the number of the lesson, and then just the number of the question and the Bible reference and nothing else. There's nothing else. I mean, it's so simple. The question and the Bible reference. So how does this work? So you're going to someone's house, and I'm going to pull lesson number 11. Lesson number 11. And lesson number 11 has 19 questions. So you do the preliminaries. I'm just getting right into the Bible study, but there's more than just, okay, we're going to do the Bible study now. Here we go. No, you do a few things beforehand. Hello, and da-da-da. And then you get to the Bible studies. And you say, we're going to play a game. But this here is a special game. Now, this only you say it the first time because thereafter you don't need to say, oh, we're going to play a game. We know. This is the best way to engage everyone in the Bible study. Because people wonder, how do I do the Bible study? Do we just give them the study guide and we go through it? What happens when you go through it? You end up simply reading what's on there. And you want to do more than just that. Or what happens is the teacher teaches and everybody's like right now. This engages everyone. So you mix the cards. Mix the cards. And you would say, Yves, didn't you do meetings in Las Vegas? You should know how to do this. I did meetings in Las Vegas with John, but that's all we did. So I mix the cards, and let's say there's Mary, who's my visiting partner, and there's me, and there's, let's say, Betty Brown and her husband, Bob. Betty and Bob. So you distribute this, you mix it, and then you distribute it, all four, until you have no cards. So everyone has, there's 5, and 4 cards. So 3 will have 5 and 1 will have 4 because that adds up to 19. You're with me, Colleen. And then as the facilitator, you say, who has question number 1? And Betty says, I do. Actually, people do this. Believe it or not, they do this. Betty, would you read question number 1? Okay, I happen to have it right here. And question number 1 says, how did Jesus describe Satan? And you say, Betty, what's the Bible reference? John 8:44. So let's all look at John 8:44. So we open the Bible and we look at John 8:44. And there we discover that, of course, Jesus describes Satan as the father of lies. Okay? Now she reads it. Okay, she reads it. Now, notice what's happening. She's engaged. She's reading. She's looking it up. We're all looking it up. She's the one who reads the text. And then I would say, in your opinion, according to what you have just read, how did Jesus describe Satan? So it forces her to think. You don't say anything. By the way, silence is okay. When we're connecting with people, sometimes we're afraid of silence and we feel like we need to talk over the silence. Silence is okay. So if she says nothing, let her just ponder over it. She finally will say something. And she will say what the Bible says, because this one is very obvious. She'll say, well, I think it says that Satan is a liar. And then you can say, absolutely, that's what Jesus says. He's a liar. He's the worst of them liars. So there you've just covered question number 1. You can add a few more comments, but then you go to who has number 2. And number 2, it's Bob. I have number 2. And you go through the whole lesson just like that. You see what happens? Everybody's engaging. Everybody is part of the discussion. It's not a monologue. It's not reading through a lesson. It's actually going back and forth. This here is such a simple way of giving Bible studies. The best way of doing it. By the way, if you don't use It Is Written study guides, it doesn't matter. Because, you know, the truth is the truth is the truth. The second coming is the second coming. The Sabbath is the Sabbath is the Sabbath. So these cards could be used with any study guide that you want. You just need to make sure that you use the right topic for the lesson you're leaving with them. And when you're done, you say, and here is the study guide. On your own, after we leave, go over it. What is happening here, you've covered the topic once, and then they will cover it again on their own, fill in the blank, and so they've covered it, what? Twice. Isn't it true that repetition is the best way to learn? And there you have it. There you have it. And let's say that the lesson takes, you've got 19 questions, and you realize that you're going to go an hour and a half to 2 hours because there's a lot of interaction. What should you do? I'm adding a little bit more here. What should you do? You say, hey, we'll finish this next week. Because you'd rather have them want you to come back rather than want less of you because you've overstayed your welcome. So keep it 1 hour or less. Not 1 hour and more. 1 hour or less. Less is better most of the time. So you're done and you say, hey, you know, we've just covered 10 questions here, but that's no problem. Guess what? We'll come back next week. To come back next week, it gives you another opportunity to build that relationship, because it's always about that relationship. So don't feel like you leave there and you say, man, I didn't cover. You know, we're so task driven. We had to cover all 19 questions. We didn't cover 19 questions. I'm frustrated. I could say the same thing. I've got so much more. I'm going to leave here. We didn't cover everything, but that's okay because Jack Phillips, my partner, is going to come and do the rest. So these are the cards, and I hope and I encourage you, anyone who's involved in giving Bible studies, anyone planning to be involved in giving Bible studies, and I hope it's all of you, that you get these cards, not because it is written cards, but because it is a great tool to use to give Bible studies. It engages everyone. It's so simple, and it takes the fear out of giving Bible studies just like that. And with that, with so much more to say, but because time is up, I'm done. Any questions? These cards are the lessons. Well, this is some. Are you in this church here? Talk to your pastor. I think that's Kathy, Vic. Is that he's asking where he can get these things? The ABC would have the lessons, or talk to your pastor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There is a good way to do it. Success breeds success. So start small. Don't lower your expectations. That's what I always tell my people, and that's what I always did. If you wait till everyone buys into it, everyone is gung-ho, then you're going to wait till Jesus comes back. Okay? You start with those who are interested. And you let them, you facilitate, you enable them. One thing that we encourage is to work in evangelism teams. I didn't have the chance to bring that up, but Jack will as he comes back. But start with small groups within your church that have the purpose to do evangelism. They work together as a unit. They encourage one another, and they let the church know what they're doing. They don't expect everyone to be part of it because everyone is not into it. But once people start seeing results, look at what's happening here. Look at the Bible studies they're giving. Look at the people who are coming to church as a result of their work. Look at that. Maybe we should do the same thing. That's the best way. That's the best way. We just met in Lebanon last weekend, and the same question came up. Oh, we need to get everybody excited. We need to have a revival. I say, yes, you're right. But the revival will take place usually as a result of the work happening and not before. You need to get into the work, and once the work happens, more and more and more people will join. Start small, and it will build, because success breeds success. I wish I could say that everybody would say, oh, we got to be part of this. It doesn't happen like this. Any other questions? Wow, was I that clear? Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, it is written, is excited to be doing this work. One last story before I let you go, because this is a good one. We did meetings in Edmonton, Alberta. We had a mother and two daughters come. And they said, you know, let me tell you a story. They told John. They said, John, 35 years ago, we had a gentleman. He was a deacon in the Seventh-day Adventist church who came to our house, to our farmhouse every week with his, Vic, listen to this, with his Duquesne machine. Anybody remember the Duquesne machines? Hey. You shouldn't do this. You're revealing your age. Duquesne machines were these boxes with cassette tapes and film strips. My kids are saying, Dad, what's a film strip? And I've got my kids almost saying, what's a cassette? Not quite, but almost. Very soon that will happen. And, you'd feed the lesson. It was an encounter series, if you remember. You'd feed the film strip. You put the cassette in there. You push the play button. And then on this machine that had a screen, images would appear. Just, like an ancient laptop. But it was just one image at a time. And a very nice, deep voice would come and do a 14-minute study on the state of the dead. Bro, just marvelous. Music and everything. So this dear deacon went to this house every week. Every week he would show his film strip. And every week it was a different lesson. And they loved it. And they loved it. At the end of the series, you know what's supposed to happen? At the end of the series, people are supposed to say, I want to be baptized. But they said, dear deacon, we like you coming, but we're not going to make any decision now. And the poor deacon probably went home feeling like, man, I have failed, and I have failed miserably. I've invested all this time. I've driven all this way. I've done all of this, and they say no. So this was mother and father and small children. 35 years later, it's now the mother and two of the daughters, now grown, no longer little. And they received this handbill. And they said, hey, this looks interesting. People still come with handbills. Not as many as before. There's still some. So they come to the meetings and they said, strange. This sounds a whole lot like what we watched on this machine that the old deacon brought to us. And they said, are you connected with? And John says, well, yeah, we are the same. But here's how the story ends. At the end of the series, they made a decision to be baptized. They said, we're not going to make the same mistake twice. So, we do this work, and sometimes you're going to have some things that don't happen the way you want. But don't lose hope, because in the long run, you never know how it's going to end. This poor deacon, who probably by now is long dead, when he goes to heaven and sees them, he'll say, what? You're here? And they'll say, yes, it's because of the work you did. You sowed the seed. 35 years later, it finally came to a harvest. So do the work, God will bless, and he will do amazing things through you. Let's pray. Father God, thank you. Thank you for everyone who's come here. And I pray, Lord, that this is not just a flash in the night that, oh yeah, that was good, and it's forgotten. I pray that everyone who goes home is determined, I am going to do something. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to be involved in evangelism. I'm going to start an evangelism team. I'm going to select a territory. I'm going to do a mailing. I'm going to follow up our bridge building events database. I'm going to do something because there's so many people around me, those ripe berries, they just need to be picked. And if they're not picked, someone else will pick them or they'll just go rotten. So Lord, I just pray that everyone here is motivated more than ever to be part of Ignite Indiana. And as a result of our perseverance, of our faithfulness, of your Holy Spirit working through us, that we will begin to see some phenomenal results. And I believe that we are on the verge of phenomenal, without any doubt. What is missing is not the people. What is missing are the laborers. But here they are. We start small, but we will build up because the army is going to build as more people realize what is happening. Bless the leadership of this conference. Bless their courage to take this on. Bless the pastors and the church members, the elders, the deacons, the deaconesses, everyone who's launching into this. Lord, be with them. This is not going to be easy. But just like you were with us in Rome, just like you were with us in Charlotte when we felt like everything was going to fall apart, you're going to be with our brothers and sisters here in Indiana as well. To you be the glory and honor forever, in the name of Jesus Christ. And everyone said, Amen.
Have you been blessed this afternoon? Thank you, Yves. Thank you for being here with us. We look forward to this partnership and journey that we're just starting in the last couple weeks ago with the rally and then the training today. We just want to make a couple of announcements, and those may still be watching by live stream, so we just want to make sure you're aware of this. During camp meeting, we also are doing more training with It Is Written. Eric Fleckinger is one of our trainers from It Is Written that will be here all week long during camp meeting time. And of course, John Bradshaw is going to be speaking from Thursday, I believe, till Sabbath evening for camp meeting. So we're looking forward to that. But Eric Fleckinger is also going to be doing a training event right before camp meeting starts on June 3rd. So you might want to write this on your calendar. June 3 from 10 to 1 o'clock. And so if you miss it during the week because you have to work, we're also asking him to come Sunday morning so you won't miss it. And it'll be a continuation of some of the training that Yves has done. So we hope that this has been helpful to you as we're trying to work and see God really move in Indiana and in our area. There is a meal that's been prepared by the Glendale Church, and thank you, Pastor Ramon, for hosting us again. And we hope that you will stay around. They have quite a bit of food down there because we didn't know how many were coming. And so if you are at all hungry, even if you're just not hungry but want to stay around for fellowship, please join us. We would love to have you. So have a nice evening. Thank you for coming. God bless each of you.